We're going to start looking at our VAT return and checking it, looking at the VAT Summary Report to start with. So if I go to Taxes down the left hand side, finding the open return, the current return we're looking at the end of the return, in the little drop down arrow, I can see the reports that we're going to check. But initially we're going to look at our VAT Summary Report, and that summary report is the information that gets sent to HMRC. This is a summary of the headline figures for our VAT return. Once we've got these return, we'll be able to see whether there are any exceptions, any changes brought forward from previous periods. So at the bottom here in red, I've got a little marker that says I have got some exceptions, and we'll look at those when we get to the VAT exception report. But this particular report here shows me for the period I'm looking at what the numbers are in my boxes 1 to 9 of my VAT return. And there is a relationship with the numbers here that we can actually check as we initially look at the return. So again, depending on the business, some businesses, all of their sales will be 20%. Other businesses will have potentially sales that are exempt from VAT, etc. If you are a VAT registered business where all of your sales are standard rated, which is currently 20%, there will be a relationship between box 6, your net value of sales, and box 1, the VAT on those sales. So we can actually do a calculation that says 18099.59 times 20%, and that gets me to the figure in my box 1, the 361992. So we know all of these sales are in at 20% on our return. We can also check whether that figure there of 18,099.59 makes sense in terms of the actual sales that are in our QuickBooks file. So if I go back, clicking the little back arrow on the browser, if I go back to my VAT Centre, under View Reports here, I can actually go and run a profit and loss report for a particular period. And if we run it for the period that we're looking at for this particular return, which is there, we'll be able to see here the total income figure for all of our sales, and that figure at 18,099.59 matches exactly to our figure in box 6. So we know that there's nothing strange in relationship to the actual profit and loss reporting in here and the net value of sales in our VAT return. Just be careful here, because if you're not doing your VAT on an accrued basis, you would need to change that setting to cash to get a comparable figure for checking your box 6 is accurate. We can do a similar thing with box 7 of the return, but box 7 is not as an exact a science as box 6 tends to be in here. So again, if I go back to my view summary, we wouldn't expect our box 7 to be totally the same value of 20% of the reclaim in box 4. So if I look at my box 7 figure there, I've got 12,626.47. If I times that by 20%, I would get to a figure of 2525.29, so a higher figure than I've got in my box 4. Which again makes sense, because I'm not going to be claiming VAT back on all of these purchases. When we get to the detail, we'll be able to see which ones we're not claiming back on. So this figure is lower than the 20% figure, which would make sense. If that was higher than 20%, I'd be a little bit worried that those figures wouldn't make sense on submission to HMRC. We can check this figure here, 12,626.47, in relationship to our profit and loss, as we did with the sales side. But there will be differences. There will be some of our purchases that come under the no VAT category, so won't be included in this figure. And we may also have purchased some assets, which again will not be in our profit and loss. So it's not as an exact science to come and pick out that figure from our profit and loss report, but it is possible to get that analysis through our reporting. So we can go to, again, view reports in our VAT Centre, go to our profit and loss, and we can get a good indication for the period what our expenses are. Total expenses here are 4912.29, and if we go up, we've got a figure here for our cost of sales, which is 8229. So if we add those two figures together, so if we do 8229 plus the expenses at 4912.29, we come to 13141.29. Now the figure in our box 7 was 12,626.47, so I'm going to take that off that figure, and I've got a difference of £514.82. So we know there is a difference there when we compare our box 7 in QuickBooks to a rough idea of what our purchases are. So we'd have a look in our balance sheet just in case we purchased anything that has gone in as an asset. That could be an explanation, but we'll also look at our detailed reports to analyse whether there is an issue perhaps with some no VAT transactions that are making up that difference. So we know there's something to watch out for when we get into our detailed VAT reporting. But that just shows you from the VAT summary how you can get a little bit of an idea as to whether the numbers are initially making sense before we dive into the deeper analysis.